Democratic ballot were odd, were 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then
Raul, do you want to start? Sorry to interrupt. Raul, do you
yeah,
want to start
sure.
off the introduction, or do you want me to start off?
Uh, Charlie, you started off.
No. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead,
you
William.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Here
William.
we are to another episode of Rockin' with Raul and the Free Amigos. Here's our special guest for tonight, Tony Davis. Kristen, what's your last name?
Christine Coyne.
Yeah, I met Kristen first.
Bosco.
Oh,
Kristen,
sorry.
Christine,
Fosco,
Christian. It's
Kristen
understandable.
Fosco, and Christine Coyne, our free
Okay.
guest for tonight.
Okay. I'll do it next time, Raul. I swear. I swear.
Hey, can I ask you all a favor?
Yeah.
I'm holding my phone. I could not find the link to come in through Zoom through my computer. Does anybody know the Zoom link? Because I don't know how to do all that stuff with coming on with your
Raul,
You
the
can
IDs
copy
and
it,
all that.
email it to yourself.
Yes.
I'm on my phone too.
Yeah. Why don't you Gmail it or whatever? Email it to yourself. Or Raul, you email him the link. You're right there, right? You're in
Yeah.
charge of the links. You're the link meister,
All right,
right?
let me try to email it to myself. Y'all keep talking.
Okay.
But he did send it, but he sent it to my phone.
Yeah, if you copy it, the link in your phone, you can put it in an email to yourself from your phone, and then you can access it by desktop.
Y'all think because I worked at the college, I got some technological skills, right? I'll find it.
Yeah, that's what they say to me.
Kristen, can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Oh, sure. I'm Christine Coyne. I'm running for a school board this election. I'm endorsed by the Democratic slate. I'm running alongside Al Resch, Ken Kaiser, Coach Heba. And I've been living here since the 90s. I graduated North Penn. My husband graduated North Penn. I'm 2003, he's 2000. And we have 4 kids together. One that's going into the high school this next year, one that's going in Penfield, and 2 little ones that are toddlers, not quite in the school system yet. Um, but I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate you inviting me to this.
Your kids will be the next generation for North Penn.
Yeah, and I figured that we have a mutual. Rahul graduated with my niece.
Raul graduated with your niece?
Yeah, so I'm actually I am Korean American, but I'm adopted by a Caucasian family from Philly, and my 2 older brothers are biological to our parents, so
Wait,
we don't look the same. But my maiden name is Whitehouse, so my niece and nephew have the last name Whitehouse, as do my parents, and they graduated with Rahul.
Now, how that must have been great. Getting adopted and having being in a good family going and coming up through the North Penn schools. I mean, is that
Yeah, I mean, well, I was young. I was only about 5 months old when I came over.
okay?
And so I don't really have memories of Korea or anything like that. I grew up partially in Roxborough and Philadelphia. And when we moved up to Montgomery Township in the 90s, I started going to Montgomery Elementary and then Pembroke and then North Penn. But yeah, I've had a positive experience. I know that's not necessarily the same for others who have had transracial adoptions. But I can't complain. I'm really appreciative for the that I was adopted, and it kind of instilled in me a little bit of I have to be thankful and give back because there's a lot that I have to appreciate I wouldn't have if that didn't happen. So that really started a kind of fire in me from a young age to give back to the community and do community service.
Well, that's excellent. That's excellent that you feel that way. That
I went to
Go ahead, Raul. I'll back off.
Pembroke and I went to Pembroke and North Penn High School also.
Yeah. So you went, I went when the mods went up, and I saw the mods go up. I didn't dream that my kids would be going into them. And I want to make sure my grandchildren don't go into them either. So
Oh, what are they? The modular buildings? Is that what you're talking about?
that were supposed to be temporary that were put up to accommodate extra students.
And they never came down.
They were supposed to have, I think, a 15-year shelf life, and they're going on their third decade at this point, I think, if
Yep.
not longer, some of them.
Well, they got their money's worth, that's for sure.
That's one way to look at it.
The mods don't owe the
I was
district
just-
anything,
yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah. No,
Christian and Tony, can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah.
I can hear them. I'm trying to get this link to open up.
Well, I can introduce myself while you're
Yeah,
doing
give
that.
me 2 more minutes.
Yeah. So I'm Christian Fusco. As I said earlier, I am a serving school board director. I was the vice president of the school board for 6 years. I chaired the finance committee, the education committee. I chaired the policy committee. I was a member of the leadership in the personnel committee. So, I've had a pretty good, intense study on school board and school policy. I'm a teacher as well. I teach in the Springford School District. I'm a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. The students that I work with are itinerant students. So I'm mostly what's called a related service provider. I'm not really teaching them math and reading. I used to teach in Philadelphia, as a matter of fact, for 8 years. I taught at a school called John Hancock Demonstration School, and I was a second, third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher, and I had deaf students that I worked with
Yeah.
all day.
Which part of Philadelphia was it? Where you teach?
It was the far northeast, Morrell Park.
yeah. Yes. My cousins were from the far northeast. They used to call Rambler Park.
Mm-hmm.
They played for far northeast and they played at Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan was
Gallagher's.
right around the corner from Hancock.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a great
Ryan's
community. It was a really, much like North Penn, a diverse group of students, from all kinds of different backgrounds, and and when you integrated in, the deaf students that were there as well, it was interesting because we had interpreters that worked with us as well, and I would sign when I was teaching, but when my co-teacher would teach, they would have the interpreters would sign. But then you had all these kids all day long that were sitting in front of sign language, whether it was the teacher or the interpreter or somebody, teaching a lesson and signing at the same time. All these kids in the school started to learn sign language too. It was this like really weird, wonderful like culture in that building. So
must have made the deaf students feel more included into what was going on if people were able to talk to them and they could talk back.
they were just part of a larger culture of like, this the acceptance, I guess. It's one of the things that I think has really stuck with me over the years. And as a board director, I've been an advocate for, anything that is diversity, equity, and inclusion oriented. We like to say DEI. We should call it what it is, right? It's important to recognize diversity because we have, that's not really a decision on our part what the community looks like. That's the community's decision. So, to recognize that and to respect it and to try to, honor the traditions and expectations of the people we're serving is important. Equity is incredibly important, especially in special education, right, where it's all about equity. It's about saying you need a little bit more here, and you need more attention here or a special tool, and we just spend a little more money on you. Like that's what equity is, right? It's putting resources where they need to be, and then inclusion, right? Like to be part of the culture, to be part of inclusion is when everybody believes everybody belongs at the table. It's not about saying, hey, we think you should sit here with us. It's, you're one of us.
Right.
And that is the kind of thing that I've always believed in as an elected official, as an educator, as a person. And it's something I believe I've fought for in my career.
Well, that's a noble cause. I mean, I mean, those students, the deaf students, the blind students, they have enough of an uphill climb to get to the point where they can get included into a school, and then feeling included into the school by the other students, being able to sign and talk to them. That's pretty freaking impressive, you know? I
You know,
mean,
and
because,
it's a huge spectrum of folks you're talking about with hearing impairment, because you have like deaf people who use sign language, but then you have deaf people who have cochlear implants and really function at a pretty high level, you know, in an auditory world. And then you have all degrees of hearing loss in
right,
between, and the way kids cope with it. Actually, the kids that I work with, they tend to just have, you know, significant hearing losses, but they're not signers, but they do often, you know, can be isolated because it's harder for them in social situations to just kind of
sure,
follow along with conversations. So they become more shy and just kind of, you know, go along. And so, you know, I actually spend time in my work with these kids, like teaching them how to advocate for themselves and like what to say in certain situations, just to kind of like practice the script and make it easier on them to like ask a friend to like say something somewhere else, or you know, ask four people to stop talking to them at the same time, like just things like that.
yeah, sure. That's that's important. And then up at Montco is a school. Montgomery County Community College is a school that's all about that. I mean, there's so many different people there, and so many different types of people on the radio who have radio shows there. You know,
Mhm.
it's all the way
And
across the board. I mean, I have a show there. Raul, well, we're on Raul's show, right? I guess we could call it. It's Raul's show.
it's the
Mr.
Three
Mhm.
Raul
Amigos
show.
show, rocking with Rahul and the Three Amigos. And
Okay.
one of the people that inspired us at Monco is Mr. Tony Davis. So Tony, can you introduce yourself
Yes,
to the
well,
listeners?
I see on the screen my given name is on there, Maurice. My father's name is Maurice, but I usually went by Tony, which derives from my middle name, uh, Antoine. Yes, I started there in 1991. I came here from Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia, and I am a native West Virginian. So my best friend and roommate in college was from Norristown. That's how I got to this region, and have been here ever since. Once I
Uh,
married in, I was really kind of stuck.
Yeah, you were nailed in then.
Yeah, actually, you guys are North Penn School District. So my wife is a graduate of North Penn, and she was an administrator in North Penn School District for a few years.
Yeah, I'm the only
Counselor,
outsider. Oh,
counselor versus administrator, rather.
okay. Yeah, I'm the only outsider here. I'm a Philly boy. I grew up in Alany and went to St. Helena's on Fifth and Godfrey and Cardinal Dougherty, which is no
Yeah,
longer a school anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
excuse me, Tony Davis. You're from Virginia,
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
If you're from West Virginia, how did you become a Dallas Cowboys fan?
Well, interesting story. I grew up 100 miles south of Pittsburgh. I was a Steelers fan, and uh, Joe Gilliam, the second black quarterback in the NFL, was starting for the Steelers. And as an 11, 12-year old, once they put him on the bench and put Bradshaw back in, I didn't take it very well. And to maybe clear it up a little further, Bradshaw just said less than 2 years ago that last ring he got should have been Joe Gilliam's ring. So there were some issues in the league at the time and still are, but there's many more African American quarterbacks these days than before. But yeah, so I went to my NFC team is what happened. Because, when you're a little kid, usually you have an AFC team and NFC team. And I moved on to my NFC team. And then lo and behold, my cousin got drafted by my favorite team, and he got 3 rings playing with my Cowboys.
Okay.
Does that
And
help you?
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
and what was the gentleman's name that had got the 3 rings? Or
Dixon
did I
Edwards. He
Was
was an
that
outside linebacker, Dixon, Dixon Edwards. He
okay?
was a linebacker along with Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and Emmett Smith and all those guys
Yeah,
out of
yeah, that was,
Michigan State.
yeah. It was a good. That was a good team. A very
Yeah,
good
we should have
team.
won 4 straight.
Who the Steelers
The
The
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
or the Cowboys? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the
and
Cowboys.
guys, speaking of the Cowboys, in other news, guys, if you guys, I know some, most of you guys may notice by now, the Eagles' schedule came out today. So, in the first game of the first season on Thursday, September 4th, we are playing
You
against
buying
the
my ticket?
Cowboys.
Are you buying my ticket?
How'd you know the Eagles are playing against the Cowboys that day?
Everybody knows.
They knew that 4 weeks ago. No.
All right, Tony, are you going to that game?
I'm trying.
Tony, how about this? If like you, me, Raul, Charlie, and what about Basil, Raul? We can all go to
Yeah,
that one Thursday night game.
we can
Yeah.
go to Xfinity Live.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
because of what the tickets are expensive.
I'm gonna be in the stadium no matter what. And they are going to be expensive. Not as expensive as if they were playing in Dallas, because Dallas costs an arm and 2 legs.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's gonna be. They're gonna be
everything's
expensive.
big in Texas,
Yeah.
including the ticket sales.
Is that because of
Great.
the Jerry Vision? You got to pay the extra fee for the giant jumbotron.
Something. But you know what, though? Now that you're talking, Chris, I want to respond to something you said earlier, because you were talking about equity.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I would discuss with the students, when we're discussing race, gender, sexuality, etc., is equity is a function of equality plus fairness. Because before equity came into being, there was very little fair for all the different specialty groups that you've talked about. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when we talk about equity, I use a special ed lens because I am a special educator, because I think it's the easiest line to draw between an understanding, because we have laws that say we do. But absolutely, like, and I say this, people always want, public services run like businesses, and I don't believe that's a good idea. But I do think that if you try to look at it through that lens, and you see that education is a service industry, right? Our role is to educate children, to provide the community's children with an education. The best way to do that for those that you serve is to understand them and to meet them where they are. And when we talk about equity work and the training that North Penn has invested heavily in the years that I've been a board director, in the training of staff, is to understand the cultures of the kids that are in their building, so that we can respond appropriately to their needs, right? In a way that they will respond positively to. You want to try to avoid adversarial situations, and you can do that by getting rid of preconceptions, misconceptions, and just having a better understanding of who those people are that are in that world with you every day, right? Because they are all a reflection of this community, and they all have the right to be there, and they all have the right to the same opportunity to be the best version of themselves. And, if that means that, we have to recognize that there are other needs beyond, what some others have, then that is something that needs to be addressed. And all of those decisions are made first and foremost through data, right? We have, we have all kinds of measurement tools to look at and be able to target and understand in very specific ways, where needs are with specific groups of students, and what types of interventions are most likely to help address those needs or those skill deficits, right? And so those are the best practices that we employ. And you have to know that you can't just do that blindly, and you can't pretend that the problem's not there. You can't pretend that issues aren't there. So, it's very important that people in this environment in particular right now, not be afraid to continue to defend this work, because it's just going to end up hurting the kids ultimately.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about that, because I wonder if the same sentiment was there when Donna Mingle was president of the board.
I don't think so. I don't believe so. I believe that of the history of the board, whether it be Donna Mengel or Vince Sherpinski or whomever, I think in general, when you look at like the difference between what a Democratic administration or a Republican leadership model is going to look like, especially the school board model, I think it's the difference between, you have to understand, like, there's the fiscal responsibility and the educational responsibility, right? And you're going to you're always going to kind of be known for prioritizing one over the other. Not to say that both aren't important, but I think the Republicans are going to tend to always, be a little bit more on the fiscally conservative side. And that shows with our facilities where they neglected the high school, they neglected the middle schools. We have 3 middle school buildings, 2 of which were taken down almost to the studs in the 90s. They had the opportunity at that point to put the air conditioning duct work in for the cost of less than $2 million. And they said no. And fast forward 30 years later or 25 years later, and it's still a problem in this community. And it's now a $30 million problem. And that was the number 5 years ago when we were studying it.
As soon as you put those walls
right now, and these things just compound, right? And the complaint is, well, the kids struggle to learn there because they get headaches and because it's, and it's all accurate, but there's only so much that you can do in a district that has 18 buildings that have as many facilities needs as this district has. So you have to prioritize it, right? That's what leadership's about, is being able to say, we only can do so much. We have to do this first. And
yeah, well, when they put the walls up at North Penn or with the school you're talking about, as soon as they did that, then if there ever was an idea of putting air conditioning into that school, it would be a retrofit job.
Correct.
And you may have guys like I did that work at night or however it's going to work, but it's never going to be a clean thing, because when you have work going on in the school while there's people in the school, whoever said no was a moron, because they don't.
Well, that was Donna Mengel.
Well, then she's a moron.
Ran on a campaign of saying no to this idea and got elected. Yeah. And then that's exactly what they did. They sold that property and they reversed course and decided.
Were any of her kids in that school?
I don't know.
Yes.
Honestly, I was a high school student in Haverhill Worsham back then. I remember conversations that we were having that Montgomery Township wanted to secede from North Penn and join Haverhill Worsham. We thought that was a serious thing that might happen. Like I was a junior, maybe a sophomore in high school back then.
When did you graduate from high school?
Haverhill Worsham.
No, I know. When did you graduate?
In 95.
I go there every year for my Special Olympics basketball tournaments.
Tell him, William.
High school.
Yeah.
William's a star.
Yeah.
So you had Dr. Hottenstein.
Sadly, over this past weekend, my team and I didn't make it to the A team, my A group.
Yeah.
From my basketball Special Olympics team, the Titans. We didn't make it to Penn State this year for the summer games championships for June. We didn't make it.
I'm sorry about that.
But our Titans B group and our individual skills athletes made it though. But the A group, we didn't make it, sadly. But we tried our best. We were trying so hard this weekend.
Every year when Megan's my niece's birthday is in early June, and every time we couldn't celebrate her because she would be at Penn State at the Special Olympics.
Oh, wait,
okay.
Is she going this year?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that idea, I think that idea of the Special Olympics and getting kids involved in sports that would normally not get the opportunity to play, and they go into Special Olympics and they play, and it lifts people up, doesn't it, William? Doesn't it lift you up when you're out there playing?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Springford, my district that I work for, they just hosted the Special Olympics for, I think it's 6 different districts last week. It's North Penn being one of the districts that competed. So that's always fun for me when Springford and North Penn are, doing something together.
Christine, if you guys are elected as North Penn School Board, what is some of your platform you want to do once you guys are elected?
Well, I think Christian, you touched on and Tony, the whole concept of equity and diversity and inclusion. And I think it's something that is super important. I think that especially under the current political climate, I think there's concerns, and I think people need to be reassured that that's not something that we want to waver on, because every child has their own individual needs and they deserve to be empowered by their education. They deserve to feel safe in the environment where they're getting their education. Um, it's truly important. And we've also touched upon the facilities because that is something that needs to be addressed. I know there's a current plan in place. It'll probably, with changes in costs and needs and as things break, it will need to be reevaluated, most likely annually or if not sooner. Um, and safety. And I say safety as a broad term. I did participate in the Safety Action Committee that the district put together last spring. And got to learn a lot about at the time, the current procedures and policies in place and things that are being done to protect our students, and then where there were opportunities to improve. Were there external audits done? There were, and what are the recommendations? And it's an experience I wish a lot of other parents and community members were able to have, because it was very enlightening of how seriously it's taken in the school district, but also that there's still work to be done. So when I say safety, I think it's mixed with a lot of things.
Right.
It's making sure the community trusts the district, right? And they feel that their child is safe within their school. Right. I think in Montgomery County, I know that's like a mental health provider desert. So I work in a very large national payer health insurer, and I'm in charge. I'm called their affordability director, which I help ensure that healthcare for our client, it manages their membership and their population in all different types of ways, and they're getting the best value for what they're paying us for. However, I understand our behavioral health network is not great here, and at pediatrics, much worse. So when the children are in the school, it's an obligation from the school to help manage those behavioral health concerns, or at least meet parents somewhere in the middle with how they're supporting their kids. Because I think there's a lot of things that could be prevented with appropriate behavioral health support. I'm a nurse originally. I started in labor and delivery, NICU, pediatrics, and I cannot stress that enough, how important that is.
Now, did I hear right that besides having North Penn High School, there's 28 other schools that are around there, like the grade schools and middle schools? Did I hear that correctly?
I think so. Christian, you're on mute. You're muted.
Excuse me,
You're
I'm
muted.
muted.
Christian is.
Christian,
Sorry,
Oh,
you think I
oh,
would know this by now. I do so many of these. It's 13 elementaries. There's 3 middle schools. There's a high school, and then there's Monco is on our property. We have 40% of our students that go there.
And there's Northbridge.
In Northbridge, thank you. In Northbridge, which is another facility. So that's just our school buildings. There are other buildings in the district.
Sure, there are. The reason I ask is because when you go about uh, working on these different schools, bringing them up to different codes, or making them bigger, or whatever it is that you're doing. Is there a form that not a paper form, but a form that you go by as to where you put the work in and what you do in in schools? I'm talking about as far as maintenance.
So we
Prioritization.
have we have what's called a 10-year facilities plan, and that is we took a time early in our election or our after getting elected to study all of our buildings very closely and kind of come up with a list of needs and projecting out like 5, 10, 20-year like needs in buildings, roofs and chillers and things like that, and compiled a list, and it's an evolving list, right? Like, so
Right,
certain times, priorities, things happen and need to be obviously elevated on that list,
right, sure,
and we have a capital reserve element of the budget where we put money aside to address those specific needs.
right,
So that was important because, again, when inheriting all these buildings, all these problems, it was really important for us to have a close study to look at, understanding what they all were, so we weren't necessarily surprised by things and could come
right.
up with a perspective idea of how to address them, efficiently.
And has that been sufficient? I mean, has that worked as a
We've had issues, but yeah, I mean, I remember a couple years ago, right after the Christmas break had started, a ceiling in the high school right in K-Pod collapsed into the lobby. I don't think we predicted that was going to happen, but fortunately, it was when nobody was in the building. We got that taken care of. But by and large, yes, I think like it's been a great tool for us, to be able to do some long-term planning, because in addition, when we plan for the high school, right, we had to keep in mind all of the facilities needs that we have in our separate facilities plan. There's $100 million of work alone in that plan, right? That's maintenance kinds of things, like I said, repaired roofs and parking lots, things like that. That you have to also consider in terms of what the portfolio problems are with the middle school and this investment that we're making to the high school right now.
And I guess the more you get into it, the bigger it becomes.
Yeah, it's like an onion. You just keep peeling away the
Peeling
layers.
away, just peeling away. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Mr. Davis, when did you decided you wanted to become a counselor at Monco and all?
Interestingly enough, I didn't make the decision. The admissions area was transitioning, and the vice president asked me if I would mind moving over to the counseling center. Now, considering I went to college and went to my master's program, trained as a counselor, worked more in foster care than the traditional counseling route, and I just moved over there. So counseling, it wasn't as much counseling as it was academic advising. And I knew that well enough. So, I did that for 25 plus years.
I mean,
So,
that was your calling, right? I mean, that was
No
something that,
question.
yeah.
I mean,
Where,
there's a
where
lot
did
of students. Yeah, there's a lot of students out there that I probably helped them more than what I realized because
I'm
I,
one of them.
yeah, thank you. I saw a guy
and me?
tonight. I saw a guy tonight at Costco, and I recognized him immediately. I always tell people I recognize them by the shape of their head, but you recognize the face. And
By the back of
I
their head.
remembered him from probably about 30 years ago, and he was really close with my boss, Dennis Murphy, in the admissions office.
Well, what was it?
Okay.
What's his name? What was his name?
Dennis Murphy, you wouldn't know him. That was 30 years ago.
No, I
Yeah.
don't. What was so? Are you guys close?
Well,
They were,
we were close at that time, and we're going to get together again with this guy happened to be from North Korea, who I think no Vietnam, North Vietnam, and so we'll get together with him. But it's always good to reminisce with those that you helped out because you never know how you made a difference in someone's life.
yeah.
What college did you go to, Mr. Davis?
What college did he go to?
No, did you go to? What college did you go to?
I started at West Virginia Wesleyan, very similar to Ursinus. Then I went on to West Virginia U in Morgantown, which is the town I was born in. Then I started a PhD program up at Columbia. Uh, Too much travel to complete that one.
What was your major at during your years in college?
Youth services, which was geared at adolescent youth. One of the few programs in the country geared at teenagers. And then the counseling program was multifaceted.
Okay.
I mean, you're more well diverse in what you're capable of doing. I take it
Right.
when you were there, because
Right.
I remember when you were there, because I was there then.
Right.
I was there from 93 to 97. So yeah, I remember that whole admissions office, the way it's completely different now.
Oh yeah.
When it was open and they had all those people that worked back in there,
Right.
it's all different. But yeah, I mean, the school then, even though the school has a lot more stuff now, the s- the school then it's still got a lot out of going to Montgo. I tell people that, Montgo is one of the best colleges in the state, and it's just as a junior, what they used to call junior college. It's a community college, but it's got so many things that to offer, and I mean, it's incredible. The whole music program over there, training guys to become engineers, and then you have your musicians and this. I mean, even that department there, and I see all
Sound
that going on.
recording. Yeah,
Yeah,
sound recording and all. I put it on the map as we're probably the best program within 100-mile radius of Center City, Philadelphia.
yeah.
As,
I mean,
as, as regards to that, and art as well.
yes, yes. They take the time. Well, not take the time. They make sure that students to come through there get what they need. Just like you were talking about, Christian, earlier, about students getting what they need, equity, all that stuff. Well, you have musicians there, you have guys that want to get involved in sound, but they don't want to go to a 4-year college. They want to get involved in, they want to learn what it is they need to learn now to help them out in industry. And then if they fall onto a school, a 4-year school that can take them to the next level, then that would be worthwhile doing. But I think the people that come out of Montgo now from the sound recording technology department and the music department, I think they come out of there. They are well versed and well ready to get involved in the music scene and across the board. And it's a great thing. And I just watch it all go around when I do my show. It's all happening around me. But it's really interesting to be there when all that stuff's going on.
Hey, Christine,
Yeah.
how would how would tighten the gun laws as a school board member? How is how
How are the laws at the school? Is that what you're saying, William?
how are the laws how are the tighten the gun laws as a school board member? How what is that like?
Well, if I'm understanding your question, the school board doesn't necessarily create laws. However, we would have to follow them.
Yeah.
There's policies that we would put in place.
Uh,
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, how would you tighten the gun laws as a school board member?
I'm not sure I could, as a school board member.
You guys
However,
would want to tighten the laws? Because I certainly would like to see them.
Across the board, yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
you're responsible for protecting the kids that are in those schools. So I mean, as far
One,
as
yeah, one
keeping
thing I personally have never been in favor of is is guns in schools. And I
right.
don't just mean for the kids, I mean like adults, I think it's really important to remember that again, we're serving kids and this is a place where they're supposed to want to come and be excited. And I just feel like
Okay,
once
okay.
we
I think
start,
you know what, Trisha. I thank you because I think I understand now, and I apologize. That's my
no,
fault.
I don't, I'm not sure. Like I'm just trying to say in terms of the only thing I can actually think of that we wouldn't
Yeah.
have any say
So
over.
yeah, like I agree with you. Like I wouldn't want to bring guns in the school at all.
Yeah.
I think there's people that want to arm teachers, and I don't support that. There's
No,
there's a certain point where, if you start treating your children in school like criminals or prisoners,
they're going to act like that, right?
yeah, yeah. So I don't, I wouldn't want that. I'm thinking about my own children, and I wouldn't.
I think the problem when we're talking about, having armed security, armed police, armed teachers, is we're talking about addressing the problem at a point where our solution doesn't actually do anything until somebody's in a building, right, with a gun. And I
Yeah,
feel like we need to focus on strategies that happen far earlier in the process than how do we respond once somebody shows up at the door. That's an important conversation to have, and I can tell you that we do trainings with our students and our teachers. It's called Alice training, and the Alice training is intended to provide different response models depending on what's happening in a situation where we used to just lock doors as teachers and like kind of sit and turn off the lights. And the problem was they would say that you're kind of leaving yourself open to being, a target if you do that. So there's evacuation drills, there's rally points where we run to spots for the kids to know where to go if there is a situation. We even have drills where we tell the kids to grab something and get ready to throw it at an intruder if they happen to get through our barricaded door. We have them barricade doors like they legitimately are practicing doing these things. And I'm talking more about the district that I'm working in. We're just starting to do these things in North Penn. The students have not started to do these activities in North Penn at this point. So I want to be clear on that. We're still very much in the beginning phase with it. At Springford, these are the things that we're doing, right, to prepare for an incident. Springford is taking a different stance. Springford also has an armed police. Springford has its own police force, and they are armed. So I get to see, the interplay and whatnot. And I think that is problematic too, because then you're investing in a school, like we were just saying in North Penn. If you have an armed officer at the high school, well, you're going to need one in every building eventually, and you're talking about having 10 or 11, 12 new staff members. And, I want to put money in teachers. I want to put money in the people that are working with children. I want to address the problems that come along with gun safety, from a restorative standpoint, from an identification standpoint, from trying to put resources into finding where kids are that are at risk of considering these types of actions, and putting supports in place for those kids, and communicating with families, and having an alert system in place where kids can feel safe to communicate things that they know. And that's a very effective tool that we have now, to the schools in the surrounding districts, our alert systems. So yeah, I mean, it's a complicated subject for schools for sure. And the truth is we don't have much say in what happens, as a board. There are some decisions that are definitely under our purview, and that is one of them, is whether or not we want armed staff. But other than that, it's really something that the larger state and the federal government needs to get a handle on.
oh yeah, they got to get their head out of their ass and they got to do something because every time there's a school shooting, they all come and they all say how bad it was and how terrible it was, and they go on and on and on and on. Nothing is ever uh, completed. No idea is completed, and then they go off and they go on to other things, and they forget about the school shooting until the next school shooting that happens.
Right.
They
Yeah.
say this is never going to happen again. We're going to make sure that this never happens again. And then they
Yeah,
go into Congress,
they
and then
always
they
say
go in,
that.
and then they go into Congress, and they want to have gun laws, and the Republicans will not vote for gun laws at all. Maybe this is terrible for me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. maybe one of their kids has to be involved in a school shooting before they can do some, they'll do something about it.
No, I
Uh,
think so. This is another thing that it frustrates me because these are the same folks that want to attack programs that are just social emotional learning. But social emotional learning is helping teach kids how to work through confusing feelings they may have that manifest as anger and other things, right? It's ways to try to work with the young people in our buildings who are almost, more likely than not to be the ones who are perpetrating these, attacks with, when they come into schools. It's very oftentimes students that are from the school, right, coming back to get, whether they're a former student or a current student, there's oftentimes that connection. And so we can do something about that if we can make their experience, different in some way. If we can identify that there is something there that needs intervention, that needs some adults, looking more closely at and working with, a student or a family, then we need to do that.
Well, one
yeah.
of the things that's rare that people talk about is civility.
Mm-hmm.
Because if more work was done in the area of civility, how people could get along, and that takes place in a variety of ways, because you still got the religious values, you've got the social emotional things to deal with, but because these folks, particularly during the COVID time, they didn't have anybody to go to, they were left to, in many respects, their own devices of or what their mind was telling them. And if their mind was out there somewhere in Mars, then they responded however they wanted to, because too much TV was being watched that wasn't producing anything. By and large, what I really want to just say is civility is something that was talked about and acted upon, and more often than not today, I think it's about what do you do when this instance occurs? But if people learn how to just be respectful, I
Yeah.
think it's going to go a long way.
Yeah, respectful and like keeping a watchful eye out for the kids that might fall through the cracks that are the ones that write their manifestos and everything because they're like a lone wolf. And a lot of times they're the ones that do these things because they feel they have no way out. And since they got hurt when they were in that school for some reason, whatever it was, they were going to come back and do damage there. And that seems like something that happens on a regular basis with the school shootings. And
So
I think it's so important for you guys that are with special ed to make sure that those kids don't fall through the cracks,
So
right?
there are tendencies that are fairly common among the past shooters that, I as an educator have had training on how to recognize like these things, so that, when we put interventions in place and we put personnel in place in order and systems in place to be able to, you know follow up on somebody's concern, we actually have also the training to help recognize what some of those signs are that should be not just dismissed, because it's easy sometimes to say, well, maybe it wasn't a big deal, but when you're being taught, this is something you need to pay attention to, it does, I think, more effectively get folks' attention and willingness to take the next step and report something that they're concerned about, instead of just dismissing it. And that's the kind of thing that it only takes the right intervention to the right person at the right time to avoid a complete travesty, and
Yeah.
not, like I said, start your solution with how do you find them in a crowded room of people screaming and running all over the place to try to take them out.
Yeah, and
Well,
and and like you said, Christian, like you're meeting kids where they are, right? And a lot of this, I think the general gist is trying to be preventative and putting in those early the foundation of having a well-developed, emotionally developed child that can either articulate when there's something wrong, know, feel like they're part of the school, like a family, and feel support to avoid a situation like that occurring in the first place.
Oh,
Somehow you got to get rid of the snitch narrative, because I bet you 95% of the time the kids that act out if they're kids had
Well,
somebody else in their class knows what the heck is going on.
I actually think we have. I think we have a system called Safe to Say where students can anonymously report concerns. And I can tell you, as a sitting board director, especially as the vice president, how often I would get a text or a call from the superintendent saying, letting you know there's a call, we're following up, right? And now we pretty much tell the community most of the times when that happens anyway. So it's a very effective tool because it's been proven that you're not going to, you don't find out where the people who report it. They have a safe, secret, way to
Yeah.
get.
that's the best way.
And
Yeah.
from a parent perspective, I do get those communications, and it's it's a succinct, factual, yet reassuring email that something was reported, it's being investigated, and here are the next steps, or what have you. I unfortunately get them more than I'd like, but also it's reassuring that we get them because there's transparency in the communication that's coming out from the district with what is happening, if there was a threat, and how it's being handled.
Yeah, but I think that speaks to the point, right? That because you're right, we get a lot of these, and obviously most of them turn out to be, not fake, but the
Yeah,
concern was
They don't come to fruition.
right.
yeah, right, exactly. Like it was just somebody who was making hollow threats, but still the threat was reported, it was followed up, so because if 1,000 reports are made and 999 of them are false, you want to make sure you followed up on every one of
And
them,
not just false, but prevented a larger event. You know,
right?
like,
And also, like I said, that also is a way for us to then say, okay, if the kid did say this and we had to put all these systems in place, now all of a sudden we start shifting resources to that kid in one way or another, depending on what the situation was, what's appropriate. Then all of a sudden the interventions again are in place early, right? Before we have to worry about, everybody's immediate safety.
Christine and Christian, do you guys start the North Penn School District start the kindergarten full-time program thing?
that's
Yeah.
Christian. He did that,
Yeah.
not me.
That was a promise we made in 17 when Tina and Jonathan and I ran. And I remember there were folks that said, don't run on that because it's a good idea, but don't tell people you want to do it. And we said, no, we're going to tell people we want to do this. We believed, and I to this day still see it because other districts still have half-day kindergarten programs. Schools subsidize a lot of their programs on young parents because a half-day kindergarten program. What does it do, right? You come in, it takes 15 minutes to get them adjusted, coats off, then they have a snack. Then you do a morning meeting lesson, you do a reading lesson, a writing lesson, a math lesson, you have a lunch in your home, right? And it's not mandatory, so you have kids, going to other programs that are more convenient because they are a full day, right? And there's consistency there. And then you have different varying levels of kids' readiness when they're coming into school. And that's a huge, huge thing for kindergarten, right? We always think about the reading, writing, arithmetic, but just the behaviors, just the academic readiness skills that it takes. Any good kindergarten teacher will tell you that you're pretty much spending all fall getting them ready to learn, right? You spend an awful lot of time doing that, teaching them that you can't just act on your whim anymore, right? There's a lot of kids that are not used to structure, right? It's a totally different world. And when you have that full day opportunity, right? And you really then, by the time like you get the chance to get the foundational skills in for kindergarten and the behaviors and the expectations and the understanding of what an expectation is. And I definitely think it just sets kids off on the right foot for first grade and beyond. I'm very proud of our full day kindergarten program.
I
And
was
what it
so
does.
sad I missed out on that, Christian. My second oldest son was the last year that they did half year.
Yeah, I think Roman missed it by a year. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going into the high school next year as well.
Same as Logan. Yeah.
I tell you, I think this is not going to help me, but as a parent that had to,
Yeah.
put that bill every month, it was expensive. Even for the
It
half-day program, it was expensive.
was. So I guess that's why I had two more kids, Christian, so I could enjoy the full day kindergarten.
Make sure
There
you
you
take
go. That's a
advantage of it.
reason.
I'm
That's a
paying for
reason
it.
for having children.
Sign me up.
Full-time
Full day
kindergarten. Damn it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't an
Excellent.
option for me. So,
What's that? What'd you say? What wasn't an option? Oh, okay.
Not more. I said it wasn't an option for me to have any more kids.
I had
my
two.
daughter has like three more years before she's in kindergarten.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
That's exciting.
I
yeah.
started kindergarten when I was 4. They put me in kindergarten. My birthday's on Christmas, so I was 4, and then I turned 5 at Christmas. But they started me early in kindergarten because I had 5 brothers and sisters behind me. Or what was it? No, there was 2, and another one coming behind me. So
Yeah,
it was easier for them to send me to school and not have to deal with me and take care of the younger ones.
I was the
3,
same
2,
way,
and 1.
Charlie, except I was not the oldest. I'm a December birthday too, and I went to kindergarten at 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you
realized this
probably
was a thing.
we were
Yeah.
both we were both seniors when we were like 16, right?
Yeah, I was 16. I turned 17 Christmas Day, and then I graduated at 17. But we started senior year at 16.
Good Lord, that is really early.
You started in college, going
I
on
had
17.
no idea. I had no idea about anything. I was so immature. I couldn't. I
Yeah,
mean,
you can't do that anymore. They don't really allow students that young
yeah,
in kindergarten anymore.
and neither should they be.
No.
You
Well,
know,
they have early intervention programs. That's really where the discussion should be. I kept saying that we were running a full day kindergarten. Like everybody else is talking about early intervention. We're talking about full day kindergarten. Pennsylvania is behind. We should be talking about early intervention for kids.
Yeah,
Agree.
but that should be one of the things that you run on. No more 4-year-olds going to kindergarten.
Well, there's none. There isn't
No.
anymore.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Mr. Tony Davis, since you're retired, how are you enjoying retirement life? And do you plan on running for something in your town or something?
Man, I'm busy as heck. I plan my main goal was to go fishing. I'm going fishing for the first time this year, this coming weekend. I'm going to Jersey, then on up to Massachusetts, because in Jersey, the 17th is opening day for sea bass. And in Massachusetts, the first day of sea bass fishing is the 18th. I'm gonna be fishing on both of those days in both of those states. Otherwise, I am the president of the Willow Grove NAACP. National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, as they say. So I'm busy. People call me complaining about this, that, and the other all the time. And I'm on the advisory board for the Abramson Cancer Center at Penn University, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I'm on a 2050 planning committee for Montgomery County. Trust and believe I'm busy.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Tony, when did you retire from Monco?
June 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But other than doing all the stuff that you're doing, what do you really do to keep yourself busy?
Well, I had my 2.5-year-old grandson over here a little while ago.
Well, that'll
do it. My wife wanted me to take him home, but I said, I got a meeting. So
I'll take him with me.
But I tell you what, though, this kid's going to be a superstar athletically. At 2 years and a week old, he was hitting balls, baseball. He loves baseball. And he can throw a ball straight about 20 feet, 8 out of 10 times. He'll throw it straight to you.
Yeah, my granddaughter, we do the same thing. I taught her how to throw. Now she throws the ball all the time in the house, which your mother and father do not like. But
exactly,
that's how she learned how to throw in my house.
Hey, Charlie, did your daughter and her husband argue with you about that when you taught that to your granddaughter?
Say that again.
Did they argue with you about that?
Well, my daughter wasn't real happy with me teaching her how to
Will she
throw
be
in the
like,
house.
why are you teaching my daughter how to throw without talking to me? Did she say that? Did she ask you that?
No, because she knew that I was going to teach her how to play ball. You know. I want
Yeah.
her to play. I want her to play softball or baseball and soccer or whatever, basketball. You know, get out there because she's got athletic ability herself. I mean, and you can tell, you know,
Right.
among kids, you know, and you can see it. So yeah, so I taught her how to throw in my living room. Big deal.
Mr. Davis, so you retired in 2021.
Yes.
That's actually when my mom passed away that year.
I might have heard that. My
Yeah.
condolences.
Yeah, thank you. And my house was on fire that year too, but we moved back in 2022, so we're fine now. And I got my did you hear that I got my associate's degree last year in liberal arts last
Last
year?
year,
Yeah, in May.
you know what?
I'm an
That's the
alumni
first.
now. I'm Monco alumni now.
That's the first and only graduation I've missed since 1991.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
fishing.
I'll tell.
He was fishing.
Nah, you know what? I was at home. I just don't know why I didn't think about it.
There was a
Maybe I can
game
send
on.
you a link from YouTube from last year's graduation. Would it
Work
be
it out.
okay? Would
He's
it be
working out.
okay if I have does Raul have your cell phone number? Can I have it now?
He's got my email and everything.
Okay. Raul, can you send it to me?
Yeah,
So I can send the
and
link for my
and
graduation from last year.
because of me, Mr. Davis sang the Fly Eagle Fly song when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl.
I'm the only one that you were allowed to get to. Actually, I was happy to do it for you, but my wife is still mad at me. She won't even go to a Cowboys Eagles game with me.
Uh,
Man,
there's Tony. There's one viewer. He's watching and he's saying best Tony Davis ever, and he's saying Eagle versus Dallas September 4th. Matt Porter.
Matt Porter sent that to you.
Yeah.
Everybody can't wait to get to me. Trust and believe.
Yeah, I feel like that's gonna be a crazy awesome game that night.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Let's go birds.
Yeah, y'all can go ahead, birds. You know, I like it because they got to spell the name. I
Yeah.
sometimes wonder if folks forgot how to spell,
yeah.
but they can
It,
spell that one.
Tony, I know a couple people who
Theus.
are I know a couple people who are Dallas fans. Like my
What's
former
that?
man, I know a couple people who are Dallas fans.
Yeah, I tell you
Oh,
what, the college, most people knew that that was my team.
yeah, I like the Cowboys. But I was a Bob Lilly and you know those guys.
Bob Hayes and all that.
Bob Lilly, yeah, Bob Hayes. They had what's his name was still playing quarterback there before he quit. The Donnie, the guy that we used to be on the
Meredith, Don
Don
Meredith.
Meredith, yeah. And then when they got Roger Staubach from the Naval Academy, and they
Right,
had him, and he was doing his naval thing after he graduated from the Naval Academy.
right,
Meredith quit because he knew when Staubach came, it was going to be either him or Morton. Staubach got the job, and Morton got sent to Denver.
right, right. Then they had Dwayne Thomas and Walt Garrison and all those guys.
Yeah, no, yeah. That
Soon
was
after that, soon after that.
yeah. It was different type of football. It was more bang bang. You know, now it seems like more like a rough touch game in certain
Well, you know,
situations, anyway.
hopefully there's going to be some negativity that probably comes along with all the NIL deals. I changed midstream a little bit because it's hard. I don't know how they're going to figure out who's supposed to get paid for the
And who
NIL
doesn't?
deals in college because some guys will, some guys won't. You almost need to have right now there's about 4 different levels of football playing where people can get paid, and it's going to probably expand even more. So it's going to be really interesting.
And there's
And
gonna be more agents involved now. there'll be more agents with the college kids going for this money and stuff like
Right.
that. They're going to be represented.
But here's the thing, academically, where are they going to be? Because most people have no idea that you got to have so many credits to establish academic residency at any institution so you can graduate. So, for instance, in Montgomery County Community College, you got to do at least half your credits there if you're going to get a degree at Monco.
Right.
Now, in some ways, they can ease it up, but Temple, you got to do 30 of your final 45 credits there. These kids are moving around all over the place. I don't know how they're going to establish their academic residency long enough to get a degree. So it's almost putting education on the background, while at least for the athletes, that's going to be the first priority versus graduating. I just don't like how all
I,
that part's coming together.
Yeah, the Intercollegiate Athletic Association no longer exists. It's not these aren't college kids playing football. These guys are pros playing in college football that are getting paid, that are getting sneaker deals, all that kind of stuff. I
Right.
mean,
Baseball,
to get
basketball, well, you name it.
across the board. So there, I mean, when people talk about college football or any college sport,
Right.
it's not a college. They're not college kids playing. I mean, these kids are pros, and because everybody's got their eye on them, for like you're talking about the NIL deals and people representing other things. Everything
Yeah,
is going, but it always comes down to money. It's always money,
no
and
doubt.
money destroys everything. So well, that's the way it seems to happen. But
Christine,
anyhow,
do you want to say anything for the viewers for Tuesday?
Yeah, May 20th is primary day. Please go to your polling location and vote for myself, Christine Coyne, and Al, Ken Kaiser, and Coach Heba. We're the endorsed Democratic slate, and we are excited to do this and hopefully have the chance to really advocate for our community.
excellent,
Guys,
excellent.
I'm
Good
looking
luck.
at the Eagles tickets at for the Eagles Cowboys game for the first game of the season on September 4th. Man, it's expensive, like 500 or 400 something thousand or 700, 800.
What are you talking about? The the,
I'm
Uh,
the,
looking at the
Chris,
prices.
Christine, thank you for
yeah,
being on our
Oh,
show.
thank you
yes,
so much for inviting me. I really appreciate
It was
that.
nice having
yeah,
you on the
yeah.
show.
It was
And
nice
hope
meeting
Excellent.
all of you, for
and
sure.
ho- and hope
Why
your
don't you
team wins. Hope you win the election.
Why
Me
don't you come
too.
back? Why don't you come back after you win the election?
In the
And
fall, in the winter.
yeah, whenever it is, come
No,
back
well,
and
May
let us know
20th
how
is
things
the
went.
primary, and then November 4th, I think, is the general election day. So in
Okay.
November,
You can come
I
back in
hope to come
November.
back and we'll have party hats.
Yeah, and you can even come back after the primary is coming up
Okay.
just to let us know what's going on with the political scene in say North Bend.
I
How's
Hey,
that
hey,
sound?
hey,
That
Charlie,
sounds good.
can I add something on that Christine may want to pay attention to? Because I
Sure.
live here in Upper Dublin.
Okay.
And if you are aware of the changes and challenges that were derived when they started talking about either refurbish or replace, and it ended up that we replaced, which was in the long run a great thing because of all the asbestos and the piping issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, because I sit on different boards in Abington, they're going through similar challenges with how they're going to move forward. So if you haven't talked to the folks at either one of those school districts, in addition to many others in the area, I would talk to them, maybe give you some insight, because I'm sure that the other Christian probably had some of those discussions already. But I would put my ear to the pavement on those two school districts anyway.
I appreciate that for
Yeah,
sure.
and one of the great things about North Penn, and not all districts can say this, all of our meetings, including our committee meetings, are all recorded and documented. And
Right.
We have a tradition now of holding very long meetings that go very deep into conversations about things like our facilities. So anybody who is interested in learning more about what's going on in the North Bend School District simply can go to our channel and look at, I mean, actually, if you go to Board Docs, you can see a specific topic and a certain video link right attached to it. We make it about as convenient as possible for folks to find information. And we try to be as transparent as we can.
Well, that's all that parents can ask, you know, and
Thank you.
you guys have the right idea. Absolutely, without a doubt. So good luck, Christine.
Thank
Good luck.
you. Thank you all.
And thank you for coming on the show, Christian. And thank you, Tony, for coming on the show. It was a blast having the three of
And
you
thank
guys
you,
on
Kristen,
here.
for coming on the show. Thank you all for
Well, thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry.
Kristen and Christine and Tony, do you have any positive viewers for the? Do you have anything to say to the viewers? Any
Yeah,
positive
Get out and
viewers?
vote. Exercise the franchise, right? You
yeah,
either
don't,
vote yes,
You gotta
no,
vote.
or abstain. Everybody votes one way
yes,
or another, so don't abstain.
definitely
Yeah.
don't abstain. They
Yeah,
must vote. Because if
that's
something
burning your
doesn't go
boat.
right, look in the mirror.
Yep.
Right. You can't bitch about it if you didn't vote. And
Yep.
So,
Thank
well,
you,
it was a
folks.
great night. It was a great night. Yes.
Yep, I had
Thank
a
you
ton of
all.
fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for joining
You're
us.
very welcome.
Thank you.
And Tony, do you want to sing the Eagles song one more time for us?
I still don't like you that much.
I want to hear this. Come on, sing with me.
Go ahead,
Sing the
Raul,
Eagles
Tony,
song
Is that
with
what
us.
it
sing the
is? Tony,
song.
Yeah,
sing it.
in the
Sing the
celebration
Eagles
of
song
the
Super Bowl
with us.
champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Eagles fly
on
on the road to
victory.
Now this is where I get off. Right.
victory. Fight, Eagles,
Eagles
fight.
fight.
Score a touchdown,
One,
1,
two,
2,
three.
3. Hit them low, hit them high,
And
watch
watch our
our
Eagles
Eagles
fly.
fly.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly. On the
On the
road
road
to
to
Victory.
victory.
Hey, hey,
That's
Eagles.
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 You know what? I
All
was
right,
trying to
y'all.
find
Good
some of
night.
the Cowboys on it,
I'm
but I
gonna,
couldn't find it.
Iggles. Eagles.
Let's go,
That's
Eagles.
how we say it in
This first
Philly.
game
They're the
against the
Philadelphia
Cowboys in
Eagles.
September. Let's win against the Cowboys. Sorry, Tony. Let's win against the
All
Cowboys.
right, team. Well, I enjoyed y'all.
So good night. Say good night. Say good night, William. Say good night.
Charlie, speaking of that,
I will.
I saw Mayor Charnel Parker at my PennDOT. She came to do the real ID thing.
Okay.
And, and renew her license. So I saw her walking with her entourage and all.
All right. Well, take care. Stay safe.
Yeah. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, Tony.
All right. Take care, Charles.
Okay. What